Hello. Before we get started with today's No Score Review show, just some quick housekeeping notes. At the time of recording, I was having some horrendous internet problems, so we were not able to record video for this episode. It will be audio only. As evidence of said terrible internet, though, you will be provided with a lovely pixelated image of myself in place of my webcam, courtesy of my guest Jake. There will also be some visual aids still in the YouTube video version of this show. Podcast listeners, you will be virtually unaffected. There might be some laggy bits here and there in between us speaking, but I still hope you are able to gain some enjoyment out of it. Now, without further ado, on with the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the No Score Review show. Today we are reviewing She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, the latest entry into the MCU, the latest TV show on Disney Plus from Marvel Studios. Today I am your host, by the way, Nick, and I am joined by my lovely guests. I have 2 of them today, Shay and Jake. Hello, guys.
Hey, Nick. Thank you so much for having us.
Nick, it's an absolute honor to be involved with this.
Well, and Jake, pleasure. You know what? It's an absolute honor and pleasure to have you guys here.
Aw, so cute.
We're just going to jump right into our general thoughts for this show. Shay, do you want to kick things off and let us know how you're feeling now that She-Hulk Attorney at Law is in its completion?
You know what? Overall, I would have to give it like a solid maybe even I overall enjoyed it. It just barely exceeded my expectations, but it did exceed my expectations. I'm super excited to see what else they do with this character. I'm super excited that oh my goodness. What's her name? Tatiana Maslany, I believe. Mm-hmm. I'm so
Tatiana
thrilled. Maslany, thank you. So excited to have her join the MCU. I've always enjoyed all of her work, and she's so charming on screen. I think I'm overall excited to see what goes on with this. And yeah, overall, it falls somewhere in my top 3 favorite MCU shows, personally.
Sweet. Yeah, I think Tatiana is an amazing get for the MCU. I keep hearing nothing but good things about Orphan Black. She definitely carried the show. I think that's probably we'll get into highlights and lowlights more in a bit, but I think she was like totally the standout of the entire show for sure.
Definitely.
What were your general thoughts?
It was definitely a roller coaster show for me. I think the biggest takeaway for me, though, is I'm happy that Marvel did something different for this show. I've definitely found it to be something different to what they usually do, and I think that's one of the best things that they did. So I'm happy to get more into it. But Nick, what did you think of the show?
Oh my God, you're too kind. Too kind. I was pretty middle of the road, I think. It was kind of an underwhelming experience, I think, overall. I'm not sure it'll be one I revisit. I think it's probably among the lower tiers in terms of all of the shows so far for me. I think most of it probably is just due to personal preference. I think it was trying to evoke a lot of the like situational comedies that are kind of on today, and like be like very light and fun. But it just wasn't my speed a lot of the time. And then paired with the fact that I think some of the time it was also very like uneven in its like goal and messaging in terms of like what the actual overall story for She-Hulk was. I think they did have like some groundwork laid for like an overall like Jennifer Walters struggle with like her new identity as She-Hulk. They definitely landed some beats in there, but I think it was kind of muddled overall. with kind of the tones they were playing around with at times. But yeah, it was a very okay experience, I would say.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely 100% agree with the tones. That I was very confused throughout, and I had a lot of ups and downs with what they were trying to do.
totally, yeah, yeah. All right. Did you guys have kind of any expectations going into this show at all? Shay, did you were you like really excited or dreading it at all? Kind of unknown.
Um, I would say I was mildly excited. Um, I try never to go into anything with too high expectations, especially since for me personally, an MCU show hasn't really grabbed me since the first, since WandaVision. And of course, when the initial trailers were coming out, it was getting a lot of, a lot of negativity due to the CGI, which for me personally didn't really bother me to begin with. But yeah, my expectations were controlled going into it. I would say that they just barely were exceeded, but uh, yeah, yeah. How about you, Jake?
Well, you mentioned it. So as soon as that first trailer came out with that CGI, I think like the entire fan base had like a collective gasp of what they just seen. So like just from that and kind of seeing like what the show was going to be like, I I didn't really have expectations. I'm someone who usually, if I get excited about something, I go in with expectations, and that's not a good thing. That's probably one of the worst qualities I have as someone who like watches a ton of tons of movies and shows and everything.
Yeah.
But with this one, I kind of just like was like, yep, I'll watch it. I wasn't clamoring for it. I wasn't like, I wasn't like excited really, but
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna watch it. So and I did. And you know
And
what?
you did.
Yeah.
And we're here.
And now we're here, exactly. Yeah, there wasn't a ton to say as far as my experience went and expectations. It was just another show that was coming in. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. There hasn't been enough like bad will um like made towards Marvel yet. And I think any past shows that have come out, it's largely my issues have either been that like it all felt a little samey towards the end of the shows, or that it was mainly just not my speed. In the case of something like Miss Marvel, there were things to like in there, but it just overall, I don't think was for me. And I mean, I wasn't the target demographic anyway, so that's not exactly a huge loss. Um, but I was willing to check it out, and uh, yeah, the CGI in the trailers like worried me a tiny bit. But I think, especially having seen it now, it wasn't a huge letdown or anything. Like I think it definitely looked better than the trailers, and it was overall pretty good. Had some weak spots, but that's about it.
Yeah. I love that they addressed that though in the finale about how they were like we're almost rushed because of
Yeah,
Black Panther.
yeah. They did a little jab about her transforming off screen.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, let's get into some highlights and lowlights. Jake, do you want to kick things off in that department?
Yeah. So I think for highlights, I think the number one thing that stood out to me is how the episodes were self-contained and how they were able to tell a story within that 30-minute frame rather than doing like a 6-episode season all focused on the same thing. So yeah, I think that was my biggest plus for that. And then I can't really think of anything else, to be honest. I'm sure I'll
Daredevil?
have some other.
Maybe Daredevil.
Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna go like episode by episode, but I think as the season went on, I kind of got more comfortable with it.
Mhm.
So like the first couple episodes, I'm like, okay, what
Right.
And then by the time we're nearing the end of the season, we have like people like Frogman. Like if you had like anything else, if you have Frogman show up, I'd be like, okay, what? But then when I actually saw Frogman, I'm like, okay, I actually kind of like this.
Yeah.
Like just like goofy characters like that. Like I forgot his name, but the fashion designer, like a fashion designer for superheroes. I don't know if that's in the comics. I haven't read any of the comics, and that's another thing that people mentioned, how Daredevil was comic like accurate to who he is. So
yeah.
I'm happy to like get more into that as well. But you know what? I'm just coming from the hop on Disney Plus and watch the show, so I can't do all that research and all the hours of content you need to watch for the MCU to really get that kind of stuff. But you know what? So be it.
So be it. Shay, do you have any immediate highlights or lowlights or anything?
You know, I going off of what Jake said, it was, the contained 30 minutes. They were fun. It was like a fun part of the week. I was always excited for like the next episode. They were always fairly lighthearted and easy watches. The I would say my biggest low light of the show would just be kind of the missed opportunities with having a superhero law firm and all of the potential stories that they can deep dive into. Like you have this entire MCU universe full of so many interesting characters and situations, and I just felt that there was so much that they could have done with that. And like, yes, there were definitely some cases that were more interesting than others. Like what was his name? Emil Blonsky's parole. That was probably one of the more interesting ones, but that only lasted maybe, what was it, like an episode and a half? And then the rest were just kind of these little petty cases of like, makeup brands and having copyrights over certain names, which it was a bit of a letdown for me personally. Right. But it kind of looks like from the finale that we're promised a season 2. So I'm gonna be hopeful for some better content.
Right, optimistic going forward. That's a good mindset to have. Yeah, I did enjoy the like case of the week type format. But I think it might have just come down to like personal preference when like that kind of got in the way of like character development or like more like interesting and like deeply thought out like plots and whatnot. Like if we had maybe got like case of the week, but then we maybe had like 2 3 episode arc like bigger cases, and like one of them could have like centered around Daredevil or something, and we still like got that, but like I think it could have landed and hit harder if there were like more time spent with some of the like clients like that Jen worked with and worked for and whatnot, and then that would have been able to cultivate more like character depth and growth with some of the characters, and with Jen too, relating back to her like own crises with like for example like the defamation case with her and what was her name again, Titania, battling over the name of She-Hulk, and Jen struggling with her identity and whatnot.
I think that's a really great point about the character development and the cases kind of getting in the way.
Totally.
Like what immediately comes to mind? Sorry, I hijacked your answer there, but I think that's a really good point. There were definitely a couple episodes where I felt like we didn't really see much of Jen as a person or where her character was going. Like there were certain cases like, the shape-shifting light elf from New Asgard who like defrauded, or I don't know, but he was like impersonating Megan Thee Stallion. I don't know. I was like, what's going on? Is this necessary?
But
that scene or that like case and B story in that one episode in particular, I think it was episode 3. That was I wasn't a huge fan. That was probably one of my least favorite parts of the show. Just because I don't know what it was. If it was just like we hadn't spent enough time with those side characters and didn't know enough about them past like the douchebag lawyer who was like the victim in that case. But like I was not that invested in that whole storyline. It's like, yeah, the douchebag lawyer should like get what's coming to him for like being a bad person, you know? And then like it was just felt very like shoehorned in there just to have a B storyline. Had they like fleshed that out more a little bit and like actually explored that idea of like a Asgardian elf shape shifting and taking advantage of people and whatnot, that could have been more interesting.
But Nick, did you not enjoy that post-credit scene?
The post-credit which
was Megan the Stallion?
Oh, the twerking scene. The
yes.
Infamous twerking scene.
Okay, you know what? I have something to say about this. Everybody's shitting on that. Everyone is shitting on the twerking scene. Dude, what's his fucking name? Fucking Ryan Reynolds is
Deadpool.
Deadpool is doing shit like that all the fucking time, and people think it's so hilarious. I'm sure that. And as soon as She-Hulk does it, everyone's like on her for it. I know it wasn't like an Oscar-worthy scene by any means. Like it's a lawyer twerking with her client in her office.
It sounds like that. I think like, yeah, people were like shitting on it, but you know what? Like it was the number one trending thing for like the week. Like, like people, they got people talking about it. I think that's what's important too, right?
Definitely.
I had really no like opinion on the twerking thing. As soon as it happened, it was like, okay, yeah, that happened. Sure.
I felt like everybody had a fucking opinion on it, and I just didn't understand why everyone got so rattled.
I think people are getting. Oh,
go ahead, Jake.
You go. I just think like people getting mad over that. I don't understand that. I think it's more like, hey, look at what the MCU is now. Like I think it's freaking hilarious. Like at this point, it's like they can do whatever they want, and I don't like personally. It didn't affect me. I think it's freaking hilarious that they're doing stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm here for it. I feel like it was kind of like a moment of like female power, whatever you want to call it. The MCU is definitely kind of starting to lean more left, and like not saying that twerking is any kind of like symbol of feminism, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it I think largely, especially in this specific case of like the twerking scene, I think at this point or at that point in the show, I wonder if it was just people like latching onto something to be angry about, because like so far it had been diverting away from what people had initially been hoping for, which I'm not entirely sure what people were hoping for, if they wanted like Better Call Saul with like superheroes, which I don't think is really necessary and is definitely not possible with this type of like tone. But yeah, it just seems strange to be like up in arms about such a tiny scene. Kind of getting back on track with our like highlights and lowlights though. Yeah, the overall like I think this is kind of something that could be like overall stated for the show for my experience anyway, is I didn't have a problem with a lot of the things they did. It's just the way they did them. I think the execution was a little muddled a lot of the time, I find. Especially like kind of going back to that point I was making before our little tangent, our twerking tangent, about the like 3 episode arcs and diving more into like the character depth with some of these clients and some of the side characters too. The week to week case of the week format was fine. It's just that some weeks it felt weaker than others. No pun intended. But going back to some other highlights, I guess the Daredevil episode I think was the standout episode for me. I really, really liked Jen and Matt's chemistry. Both those actors, Charlie Cox and Tatiana Maslany, like bounced so well off of each other. I loved every minute of that episode.
Yeah, definitely.
And Frogman was just absolutely ridiculous as well.
Listen, man, if there's a Frogman fan club, like I'd be like, you know, like a hidden member of it. Like I wouldn't want people to know that I'm a part of it.
Right.
But like I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off the Daredevil episode 1, Nick, I wanted to ask you, what was are you someone who like reads the comics and like would be that person that's like, yeah, Daredevil is like comic accurate from what you've seen?
So no, I am very much. I have really only been getting deeper into Marvel stuff because of the MCU. The only things I really knew about like the accuracy was like going into the show was that like they were going to be using his, I don't know if it was his original comic suit or whatever, but the yellow and red suit. I knew that was like coming, and that was going to be an accurate portrayal of like his first his like introduction to the comics or whatever. But as far as, because I watched the Netflix show and he didn't feel any different, really. If anything, he felt like a little bit lighter and more like in line with the tone of She-Hulk, but it wasn't like degrading to the character, and it wasn't like degrading an already established character. Like that technically can't really be an argument, I don't think, because I don't know, I don't remember if the Netflix shows are considered canon anymore, or if they're just borrowing the same actors for those roles. But yeah, I'm not super well versed in the comic side of things, but I mean, I think he was perfectly in line with what we've already seen of Charlie Cox's Daredevil. So,
you know what? I've actually, excuse me, I've grown up reading the comics. I was a huge, huge Daredevil fan as a child, and
well, there you go.
This might be very controversial, and I'm sorry I might lose some listeners for this, but I prefer Ben Affleck to Charlie.
Whoa, really?
I think he embodied it a lot better. I think he
man.
kind of had a, but you know what? To be fair, I have not finished the television series. I don't know the television series as well. I've been kind of reluctant towards it.
That is very interesting.
Tying back into She-Hulk, I know, you know, for some context for any listeners, the three of us work together, and
right.
I know that one day when I was at work and I kind of went off and I was like, I dear God hope that Daredevil and She-Hulk don't grow a love interest in each other. And I kind of went on my little tangent.
I remember you saying that, and I didn't want to make a face because I had watched the episode at that point, and I was like, wait, Nick, were you there?
Yeah,
well, if I wasn't in the same, like we also had that conversation.
Oh so. No! I remember, Shay, you said that, and then I gave Nick a look. Yeah. We were like, oh no.
Yeah, I came off very strong, but you know what? I've had a change of heart on it. Kind of going off what you said earlier, Nick. Their chemistry was insane. The reason why I was reluctant to anything that went on between the two characters is I thought it would have been kind of weak for the writers to tie them together just because they were both lawyers. I was like, oh, just because, like, you know, they both have the same occupation. I don't know. It felt predictable, and I wasn't really into it. I also really enjoyed the kind of story of Jen dating and all of that. But I stand corrected when they had that fight sequence in episode 7, and they were like discussing legal strategy while absolutely destroying these other guys. I was like, damn, this is great chemistry. I'd love to get in on this. If I could, I would.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm in for it.
Yeah, I think that was a very, very well done. That is so interesting that you prefer Ben Affleck. So I don't have like I saw the Ben Affleck film like way back when and have not revisited it in years. But that's so interesting that you prefer his performance.
You know what? It's on something that I'm very open about.
That's probably a smart move because I think that would probably garner a lot of people up in arms.
You know what though? Like if you do decide to watch it, watch the director's cut. The director's cut is, but it's very different and really, really well done. I was also very biased though because like I think those movies were coming out in like 2003, 2005 because Elektra came not very
after,
close
right?
afterwards. Yeah. And at that point in my life, I didn't have a whole lot of female representation in like the superhero world. Okay. Arguably, I think that was the first. So I was also really buying into the Ben Affleck one because of the Elektra storyline. So I do feel like I need to kind of note that.
Interesting. Well, if nothing else, you've reignited my interest in wanting to rewatch that film now, just to see like how it holds up and everything. Very interesting.
I sure hope I don't disappoint you.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is controversial. But I haven't seen that first Daredevil movie.
Oh, okay.
Now,
I don't know if controversial is the right word.
I know, but from what I hear, the movie itself is controversial.
Right, yeah.
But is this like do you think that's something that's worth like taking time for to understand the character of Matt Murdock, or there's already this Charlie Cox version that they're already saying like, hey, we're doing this entirely new show. From what I've heard, I'm pretty sure Kevin Feige said that that the new Daredevil show doesn't connect with the Netflix now on Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
So
they're simply, I think, just keeping the same actors for those roles, but they're like starting a new story for the upcoming show. So as far as the movie goes, I think that's just something to like maybe add to your like filmography like repertoire of like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I know what it's all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something you need to go see, but
no, you definitely have to strap in knowing that it's like very early 2000s.
Yeah. Cool. Where are we at? We're at highlights, lowlights. Is anything else coming to mind for you guys that stands out? I mean, I'll let you stew on it for a minute because I do have one more note I wanted to add. It's also just kind of tying back into like expanding on the characters a bit more. One of the characters in particular, like several episodes in, I think it wasn't until the defamation episode, where Jen was being represented by her colleague. Where is she? What's the actress's name?
The paralegal?
Yeah, her coworker. Not the one who's into fashion.
Nikki. Oh, Ginger. No.
I'm so bad with names.
It was like the hard ass lawyer that she was like standoffish with at first. But then she ended up like repping her in the defamation case. Yeah, Nikki is her best friend.
That was her paralegal, no?
Renee? Oh, I think it might have been her. Renee Elise Goldsberry. She Mallory Book? Does that sound right? Kind of sounds right. But I really enjoyed her character when we got like her, like more of her. and I wish they just kind of like went with that more, especially in the case of like Nikki and what was the other guy's? Not Todd, that was the villain, but like the other the guy who likes shoes. Getting more into like their background and stuff would have been great to see as well, and like help sympathize with these characters a bit more. They felt a bit like one note kind of a lot of the time, and were kind of felt like the what's the word, the comedic, like the jokers, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
But yeah, anything else coming to mind for you guys? Pug, that was his name.
Oh yes, Pug.
yeah.
I want to jump into, I see on your structured list here, the creator's goals. This is something
Oh
that I
yeah,
want
let's
to
do that.
discuss.
Let's jump right into that one.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think the creator's goal was with making this show, and do you think they achieved it?
I guess I'll start because I was the one that brought it up.
Yeah.
I was very confused on what the goal was throughout the 8 episodes, and I think we've all made it very clear that we were all very confused on the direction of the show.
Right.
I think when we got about halfway through, I was like, you know what? Is this supposed to be like a rom-com type? Is this the kind of style that we're going for? I think, what was it, episode 5 or 6, when she was kind of really starting to get into the dating, or no, it was the wedding episode. I actually really enjoyed that episode. Because prior to this episode, we saw Jen trying to go on so many Tinder dates and, trying and failing. And just the overall style was very rom-com-esque. But there was obviously some points where I was like, is this intentional? I don't know if this is intentional. I actually looked up the director of all 8 episodes, and the director's entire, what's her name? Kat Coiro? She's actually known for romantic comedies. So it made a lot of sense with what we were watching. But once I thought I had everything figured out, I'm like, okay, this is, it's just like a different type of style. Again, I'm not really sure if this is answering the creator's goal. The final episode kind of hijacked everything, and I would really love to discuss the final episode because I'm a bit confused on what the goal of that was.
Okay. Do you want to jump into that first, or Jake, do you want to get your thoughts in on the creator's goal first?
I think Shay outlined it pretty well there with Kat's background and everything. But going into this final episode, I think it was just like I think Marvel puts up with a lot of criticism from the fan base. Well, of course you can't like please everyone. There's always going to be someone who doesn't enjoy it, and I think that this was just like them answering this, because I think what they're trying to tell us is, hey, don't take things so seriously. We're here to watch shows, turn our brains off, and just enjoy Marvel content. I don't think we need to look that much into it. Right. And that's why it was so great to see her like talking to a robot, being like, hey, so when are we getting the X-Men? Like it's like I thought that it was fun that they are show that they're self-aware. I think that was like something really cool to see.
Yeah. Shay?
Yeah, no, definitely. I 100% agree with Jake. The fan base can be very toxic. And it was kind of nice to get that validation from the producers. They made it quite clear in episode 8 that they're not taking it entirely seriously. And I think, when we really go back to like when you look at the bigger picture, we're talking about superheroes at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
This is supposed to be fun and exciting, and but like,
it's a show about a big green woman. Like, what do you want from us? Come on.
Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, in regards to the creator's goal, I think for the most part, they achieved the goal of writing a like sitcom lawyer show about She-Hulk and about superheroes. I think from here it's just a lot of fine tuning and refining with the second season. Keeping it like more character focused would be a welcome change in my book. It doesn't need to like go like serious or anything. Like I would be happy to keep this same format and same tone. I just think more work developing characters and some more consistent like through line plots sprinkled throughout the show, and like a really strong overarching plot would be great too.
I think I'm kind of confused though on how season 2 is going to work because, sorry, what we learned from our episode 8 is, she's kind of falls like behind the scenes of She-Hulk. And I'm like, is this storyline real? Like the last 7 episodes, did any of that actually happen? Like, who is She-Hulk now? I'm actually kind of confused about that.
Right, like in terms of her breaking the fourth wall and whatnot and going to Marvel Studios.
Yeah, like I don't really know what they're trying to do with that. I like the idea of it. I'm interested to see where that goes. But at the end of the day, is she like a producer, actor, or is she really Jen Walters? Is she a lawyer? I'm confused.
I think the answer to your question, Shay, is very much similar to anytime someone asks too many questions about time travel. And I think it's probably just better like left alone.
But then what's the point?
I think so. I think the point, especially with this specifically, with what they were doing in the finale, I think was what you guys were talking about earlier, and just like kind of showing a mirror to the fan base and being like, "Hey, just like calm down. This is a fun ride. We're not going to take things too seriously, and maybe as a fault of that." We're not going to answer all these different questions and threads that we might be setting up. So whether that's a detriment to the show is a different thing. But I personally wouldn't expect too much to come from the like fourth wall break in that finale. I think that was more so just to be like, I mean, the title of the episode is "Whose Show Is This?" Right? So it's like they're just being they're standing their ground of like, okay, we don't need to have all these big showdowns and messy fights in the end with all of these like Easter egg characters thrown in for the sake of it. It's very much just going to be about She-Hulk going forward. So I think that was kind of another like stumble with the show too, is that all of the like fourth wall stuff felt like kind of random at points. It never felt like, I think it was strongest in the finale for sure, especially because you can see like she's actually toying with things and changing stuff, right?
Can I talk about the fourth wall breaks? Because I feel like that was like, I think that was my biggest gripe with the show. I think that it was just like there's so much of it, and I think the one that annoyed me the most was the beginning of the wedding episode, because the week before they teased Daredevil.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so they teased Daredevil, and then it's the next episode, and then like within the first minute, she looks right at the camera and she's like, "Oh, the wedding self-contained episode? Yeah, me too. I wasn't expecting this."
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, like knowing what the finale was, it kind of sits better with me. But in that moment, I was like, what? Like, and then just like so many like other things when she would say like, oh, connecting the A plot and the B plot. Yeah, I'm like, okay, you didn't need to like do that. But when she's like the line when she says like, "We're Hulks, we smash things," and I smash Matt Murdock. I like after all that, I'm like, yes, okay. See, that's kind of using it better. Like you said, the last episode, it was better because they're showing that they're self-aware. They can talk to the audience in that kind of context. But just like so many times, it kind of just like it threw it like I was so thrown off by it at times.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, it
consider
was
that
definitely very jarring at times and unnecessary.
So that's my fourth wall break rant, if anyone cares.
I care, Jake.
Yeah, I care too. You're in a safe space.
As a member of the Frogman fan club.
Okay. Do you think you guys? This is kind of a modified version of the question in the document, but do you think you guys will revisit this like anytime soon? Was it worth the 9-episode investment to you watching the show?
I think it was just like I probably won't rewatch it. Just considering like the amount of episodes and all that. I feel like I can watch it once. I think the one thing like if it's worth going back for once they connect She-Hulk into what is the MCU, like a big like the biggest crossover in like media now. That's not even just movies, it's media now. Yeah, if I feel like I need to go back and get more context on She-Hulk, yeah. But as of right now, I probably don't see myself rewatching it in the future.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling kind of similarly. I did thoroughly enjoy it. When WandaVision came out, like I think I rewatched it like 3 or 4 times, but that was because, that storyline in particular, there was a lot of small little things that you had to pick up on. They were giving you a lot to digest, whereas She-Hulk is a bit more, and it was supposed to be a little bit more surface level, like a lot of it was, her dating or her waiting for a guy to text her back or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which I love that episode. I felt that episode.
Yeah, I actually really liked that dating episode too. That felt like one of the strongest episodes for me, where like you have this focus on like her dating life and stuff, but then you have that like B plot with Wong and the magician, which was really interesting, and that was like your superhero fix for the week too. And it was like really cool, like a really cool fight and stuff, but it was still really entertaining and focused on Jen too, which was great.
Definitely, yeah. I could see myself rewatching it. Again, kind of what Jake was saying, like, I really do hope we see more She-Hulk. I know they kind of made a joke in the last episode where, see you on the big screen, and they were like, no, you're not going to get on the big screen. I hope to actually. It would be great if whatever the next Avengers is, if she became part of that,
Totally.
and I would come back and rewatch the initial episodes because maybe I missed something. But overall, the show is fairly, the issues are kind of surfaced. Unfortunately, kind of forgettable. But there were certain. I think I'd rewatch episodes 7 and 8. The 7 and 8 were great, and the fight sequences, especially in 7, were amazing. All the Matt Murdock and Jen fighting, I'll rewatch that over and over again off YouTube. Really, I have been.
Yeah. I would agree there. If I was to come back and watch anything, it would be like the Daredevil episode and maybe the finale too. Like those are definitely the standouts for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think after watching She-Hulk, I feel more compelled to go watch all the seasons of the Daredevil show. After seeing stuff like seeing Fisk in Hawkeye, and then learning more like the tiny little bit we got of Daredevil and Spider-Man, and now getting him for an episode in She-Hulk. I think I'm more compelled to go watch something like that. Like it gives me a reason to go back to watch that. And I think that's probably what their goal was. They want us to go back and watch like all these other shows that they just took over from Netflix.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I have an inkling to want to watch those again, just because like they were so great when they came out, and it's been a while since I've seen them now, so it'd be great to revisit them for sure. Cool. All right. Moving on. Do you guys want to give like 2 to 3 pros and cons for this show, Shay?
Mm.
To kind of
Ah.
surmise, maybe Jake should go first.
Okay. Two pros. Okay. Minimum two?
It could be like a total of 3 pros and
Okay.
cons.
I will say for pros, I'll say episode structure, but like not like the writing. I think Marvel doing self-contained is good for someone like myself who like um like doesn't want to like think of so many things at once. If you give me an entire story arc within 30 minutes, I love it. Um a second pro I'd say is the self-awareness. I love how they did the whole self-awareness thing because I see people all the time who just like who take it so seriously, and I think that's the case with Marvel. You need to shut your brain off a lot. There's people like they're just going around destroying cities, and we have like these like we have Frogman. I just like, I'm just developing a love for Frogman the more I talk about it. But yeah, I think it's like being able to shut your brain off and not have to deal with like convoluted stories. It's just simple like, hey, I'm a lawyer, there's things happening, and you know what, at the end of it we're gonna call you out for saying it's bad.
Yeah.
For cons I'll say yeah, like the fourth wall breaks to an extent, and then just like yeah, not really I like you said, like um some of these side characters like more more Frogman, not enough Frogman.
There you go. There's your suggestion for the future. More
but yeah,
Frogman.
more Frogman, and you know what? Maybe some more Daredevil. Get me
Oh
more.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
We'll get more Daredevil. Don't you worry. We're getting plenty of him.
for sure.
Shay?
I would say one of my biggest pros of this show was how many shots the show took towards like the toxic culture of the MCU, and just
Yeah.
even just, you know, I felt like it was also kind of targeting how do I say this? How do I say this? Honestly, just shit men. It was
Yep.
really,
You can say
yeah,
it. Say it again, honestly.
shit men.
There you go. You don't even need
Yeah,
shit in front, honestly. Most of the time, it's just men.
I was going to say that, but I hesitated. Everything's recorded.
You're in a safe space.
I know. Love you guys. Sorry, I got
Shay's biggest con of She-Hulk was men.
there should not have been any men in that. Actually,
Yeah.
even Daredevil should have been removed as the love
There you
interest.
go.
I think they should have brought in Kate Bishop
There
from
you go.
Hawkeye, and that
Well,
would have been the love interest.
I don't know. I mean, the age difference there might have been a little iffy. I don't know if Kate is like still a teenager or whatnot, but
No, Kate's like 22, 23.
okay.
And
You can make your own choices.
Jen is like comfortably in her 30s, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know,
I
actually.
don't know where we're going with this.
You guys can't crush my dreams.
Pros and cons.
Okay, sorry. Pros. I found the show to be like very, again, surface, but like relatable. I know I kind of briefly mentioned it before, but I found a lot of humor in a lot of the dating scenes.
Sure.
You know, especially when she was like, you know, waiting for that guy to text her back, and the whole episode was kind of like around her trying to avoid her phone or like typing a message and deleting it. And
Right.
like this is all going between like her absolutely like kicking ass in both the courtroom and on side streets of She-Hulk, and she's concerned about like little issues like that. But you know, saying that as well, my biggest con I think I did have with this show was I did feel like they kind of, I'm not sure if this is the right word, but like hyper feminized some issues. I know that was something my partner kind of critiqued earlier on in the show, where I felt like the problems that the writers created for Jen could have been a little bit more professionally related, or related to, I don't know, herself or her own identity. And I know we did have a lot of like identity conversations within those episodes, but she kind of seemed to, I don't know, really focused on like, friend drama, being like a bridesmaid, or working on. Oh, sorry, my dog.
We're getting a cameo in this episode.
Yeah, there was. Sorry. Can you guys hear her?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure can. We don't even get dog video this episode. That's just.
No, I know.
How could we? Only audio.
Sorry. Those thoughts were very jumbled and blurred, but
that's okay.
I kind of wished that we got kind of more real issues with the cases that she was given, rather than kind of focusing on, makeup lines or makeup. Sorry. Yeah. And I don't know. I felt like everything was very gendered, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And
Gotcha.
I guess that was the point. But
right.
I don't know. Yeah. How about you, Nick?
Well, just kind of tying into that, I can see where you're coming from. I think like it also can tie back to that keeping focused on like a handful of characters too. Like that wedding episode, while I think it was fun, it was like there was like no one there at that wedding that like mattered in the grand scheme of things, right? Besides Jen. And like Josh like was more of a major player towards the end too. And I guess like Titania shows up, but that also just felt like a little random as well. But yeah, just like tying back to a few characters rather than having all these one-off one note characters instead. Also like going back to that like douchebag lawyer that she worked with in the Megan Thee Stallion episode, like he doesn't show up again, I don't think, at all, and except for like one news interview towards the end of the show where he says they dated or whatever. Other pros, though, I think I could probably speak for all of us in saying Tatiana Maslany carried the show. She was like the absolute standout. I'm very much, like Shay has said many a time already, I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of her in the MCU to come. She was a super strong performance. The other pro I would say is the bottle or not bottled episodes, but like the contained nature of it, kind of how Jake is or already said. Yeah. My biggest con, though, I think, is just the muddled nature of the show overall, not having that clear vision on like overarching plot and what characters we want to focus on. We had a few strong moments here and there with like Mallory and Daredevil, and I did enjoy like stuff with her parents and stuff too. But I think a little bit tighter focus and more structure going forward will be a welcome change. Yeah. So, who would you guys recommend this show to if you were to recommend it? Jake?
Well, who or would I?
Would you, and if you would, who would you recommend it to?
I just feel like there's better content to consume for the MCU.
Right.
Yeah, hey, if there's like I don't think there's anyone personally I would recommend this to.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's like, hey, if you're in for something that's just silly and like you won't take seriously, go ahead. But I feel like there's more. There's just better stuff out there.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of.
Do you think it's required viewing for like an MCU fan, an already like established MCU fan who hasn't seen it yet?
I don't think it does require viewing. I think like the origin story is kind of like it's all within that one episode. You kind of understand what the Hulk is,
mm-hmm.
and you can really just watch that first episode to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. And so if she shows up in like a future movie or anything. I think it's pretty like, plus you kind of know how the whole Hulk thing works, but if you want to know how that origin story,
you can put 2 and 2 together.
works, yeah,
she's Hulk now. That's all you need to know.
Exactly.
Shay?
Yeah. No, I very much agree with that. I don't think it's a necessary watch to tie into the rest of the MCU. Even the first episode, like, it was a great episode, and we did get a bit of an origin story, but it is pretty self-explanatory, as you said. Honestly, the only like demographic I think I could recommend it to is maybe like a younger audience, maybe younger girls, because I know they don't get a whole lot of representation.
Sure. Yeah.
But overall, if I was like, trying to introduce somebody to the MCU and giving recommendations, it wouldn't be on the list.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe check out the Daredevil episode. Maybe check out the premiere if you really want to know. I think the premiere is where like She-Hulk looks the strongest. No pun intended, but like her CGI I think is definitely the strongest there. I was pleasantly surprised in that premiere. I'm like, oh man, they really turned it around. But then it kind of flip-flopped a little bit throughout the show. Cool. All right. Well, we did it, you guys. We made it to the end of the review show. By God, did we fight like hell to get here? Mostly me, but sorry to the audience. There isn't going to be, or as you have already found out by now, 56 minutes into this goddamn show, there's no video this time around. It's going to be audio only, but I will do like video graphics and stuff to put on YouTube and whatnot. But
are you going to have like
a podcast episode? What was that, Jake?
Are you going to have like stills of us in the? Are you going to have like YouTube version?
I will have a YouTube version. So if you guys want to send me some fantastic looking photos of yourselves, then that'll be a welcome addition.
So speaking of fantastic looking, can you if I may request, would you be opposed to using the picture of what I got of what you look like in the video version?
We'll see how editing Nick feels about adding that in, but we can definitely entertain that possibility.
I'll take that as a hard no.
I'll throw it on the suggestion pile. How's that sound?
Okay, I'll take it.
So do you guys have any plugs to get out of the way? Anything you want to like point the audience in the direction of? If not, then you can give a recommendation of another TV show, a movie, or a video game if you want. Shay, you want to start?
If anybody's listening to this at this point, although I highly doubt anybody who is not an MCU follower at this point who would listen to an entire hour long of us discussing She-Hulk. When it comes down to MCU shows, nothing really beats WandaVision at this point. I think.
Interesting.
When it comes to recommendations, I know Hawkeye didn't do very well. We all know at this point, I'm a pretty big fan of Kate Bishop. I think I'm just kind of talking out of my ass at this point, just to answer a question.
Hawkeye and WandaVision.
Hawkeye and WandaVision. If you're going to watch an MCU show, have it be those two.
Sure. Yeah, that's a hearty endorsement. I can get behind. And then no plugs or anything. That's all.
What do you mean by plugs?
Just like any projects you've worked on, or any like if you have a big social media following you want people to go follow you on, or anything.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Tell the people where they can
subscribe.
Find you.
Yes, at Shay Martin Media. Like and subscribe. Yes, thank you.
You can go directly to Shay and have your heated arguments on Daredevil the movie featuring Ben Affleck.
Yes. Now that I have a microphone, I feel like my opinions really matter and I really need to be heard. So, yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jake, how about you?
For anyone who is watching and is probably more focused towards reviews, you can find my Letterboxd at Sturkenboom, STURKENBOOM. You can find me on Twitter at StirkenBoomLive, and I also tend to stream on Twitch, but I am currently on a pretty extended hiatus. So also StirkenBoomLive for my Twitch, but mainly for reviews, like movie reviews and all that. My Letterboxd is the best to go to for that. I'm constantly watching movies and taking in media of many different forms.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I just got to say thanks for having me, Nick. I've been excited. You've been talking about the No Score Review Show for such a long time, and I'm finally here, and you're doing this. So I'm happy to see you doing it.
And this will be the first of many, I'm sure.
I hope so. This is so much fun.
I'm glad you had a great time.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, everyone should get a Letterboxd account because that is a wonderful app and social media site for film buffs.
Yes, speaking of which, also follow me, please, on Letterboxd.
Nice. Yeah, there we go. There's a plug.
There's the plug.
Yeah, I forget about all the platforms I have. But yes, Letterboxd is an excellent, excellent platform for anybody who's looking to read about reviews that, you know, aren't film critics, professional film critics. Yeah.
Exactly. And what is it? Shay Martin Media on there as well?
Oh, stand by on that one.
It's just Shay Martin. It's just Shay Martin.
I'm
looking at her right now.
Look at that.
I do. Shay was gonna be like, I gotta go look.
Jake's got you back.
I'm not very good at this self-endorsement thing. I need to get better.
We'll get you there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And then you guys know where to find me. I'm No Score on YouTube, the No Score Review Show on all your favorite podcasting services, and on Twitter. You can also find me on Letterboxd as well. I'm also doing my Road to Ragnarok series on my No Score Plays YouTube channel, where I'm playing all of the mainline God of War games until the new one, God of War Ragnarok, comes out. That's what's mainly going on there. This episode was recorded close in proximity to the review show for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, so that'll be up soon around the same time as this one when it goes live. So go check that out if you want. And then I will also be doing a review show for House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones show. That should be finishing up pretty soon here, so keep an eye out for that as well. Otherwise, Jake, Shay, thank you so much again for joining me on this episode. And
thank you so much,
we will
Nick.
see you
Anytime.
all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.